What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Bro. It's a little different today for our normal Coffee with Bro show. This is going to be podcasty form, and I have a lot to discuss on where we should be emotionally when analyzing the 76ers and this second half run, if you would like to call it that. We're more than halfway through the season, but post AllStar Break, the Sixers have an opportunity, and I believe it's time as Sixers fans to emotionally prepare for a run to the NBA Finals. The combination of Joel Embiid and James Harden absolutely should put us in a position to put our heart right on the table and say, let's go. Not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Not, no, they're not good enough, and I'm afraid of the bench or I'm afraid of Doc Rivers. This team has the superstar talent to accomplish the goal. And when you analyze what's going on in the Eastern Conference with the Celtics and the Heat and the Bucks and the Cavs and the Bulls, the Sixers are right there. And honestly, in terms of duos, I love Harden and Embiid. Even though we haven't seen them play yet, I love those players and the talent of those two individuals over Lowry and Jimmy Butler. I like them more than Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I like them more than a lot of these names. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. Embiid is playing like a monster. You saw it yesterday. The dude would have been the All-Star Game MVP, of course, if it wasn't for what Steph Curry was doing. He was obnoxious and he was unbelievable. He was shooting from everywhere. I wonder what Ben Simmons was thinking about throughout that time of that game going down. And I already saw some of the comments while I was waiting to put the show on live, and I got tweeted at on Twitter. Bros, this guy lives in your head rent-free. No, this guy stinks at basketball, and he's watching everybody in the NBA shoot the basketball. What goes through his mind when he sees players and the ability to shoot the ball the way they do? Garland had some deep shots. LeBron James to end it with that unbelievable one-footer in Cleveland. Pretty cool moment. Took away from our guy Joel, who was getting fouled, and he was earning some free throws. I love it. You could tell how determined he was to win that damn thing, but it really is more of just a defining moment of what mindset Joel is having this season and how badly he wants things. When he's determined and his will is so damn high, the ceiling is high. So basically, my point here today is to stress that it is time to take your heart and say, NBA Finals run this season, absolutely. When you have this type of talent at the top tier, you now have to change your expectations. And it's okay to change expectations as the season progresses. And there's plenty of examples to kind of define what I'm saying here. Back when the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, they started out the season before with a 7-9 record and entered the season with the second year of Doug Peterson after everyone wanted him fired. And they end up going on a run. But some point throughout that season, you realize, wow, against Carolina, wow, against Denver. Then your brain started to switch and you realize there's something different about this team. They have the it factor. And then eventually, emotionally, you pulled the trigger on, oh yeah, they are a serious weapon. They're a threat and they can win the Super Bowl. Throughout the season, their play dictated that. Let's go to the Washington Nationals, the Atlanta Braves. Nobody thought the Atlanta Braves and the Washington Nationals were going to win any sort of championship. The Nationals stunk. They were miserable. Then at one point, it started to click on all cylinders, and even fans who were not living in Washington, fans of baseball who studied the Nationals and their play, you went, oh, damn, hold on a second. Do you see what they're doing? Maybe their bullpen, then they start moving around their starters, and they get creative with how they're utilizing the bullpen, and then hold on a second. Now we're winning a championship. They do it. The Atlanta Braves, they should sell at the deadline. They're not good. Look at the NL East. There's no way they're buyers. If they buy, they're stupid. Ronald Acuna Jr. got hurt. Freddie Freeman at one point started the season on such a miserable run. Hold on a second. They got back in action. They realized we can actually do some damage. They go on a run. At some point, expectations within their respected seasons dictated the pulse of the fan base and the realization that there is something here because it's clicking. When you look at Joel Embiid and James Harden, and trust me, you'll get the sense that it can click. When you have this type of firepower at the top of your roster, you want to talk about flaws. The Atlanta Braves had flaws. The Washington Nationals had flaws. The Philadelphia Eagles did have flaws. Now, here's the opposite example. The Philadelphia Phillies a few years ago were in first place. Nobody was at Citizens Bank Park. Nobody believed in that team. Nobody wanted to think that they had what it took because that sniff test was just false. There was no real legitimacy to them being in first place in the NL East. You just had the sense that it was crap. And what do you know? August rolls around. They go on one of the most historic collapses that we've seen in Phillies baseball, which is pretty ridiculous considering how much of a failure that organization has been outside of that 2008 to 2011 run that we enjoyed so much. Obviously, there were teams that did make more noise than others, but it's a losing franchise for a reason. You could just sense that it's off. Don't fully invest. And we were properly correct. Right now with this 76ers team, it is time to fully invest. Now, that doesn't mean if they don't get it done, they're screwed and there's nothing Daryl Morey can do and they're in some awful position, because that's not true whatsoever. There is this 2 to 3 year window that's opening up between this combination of two superstar talent. But it matters when you have this type of special play and Joel Embiid being the monster that he is, where I'm ready to go absolutely all in. And I put up a Twitter poll yesterday when I was on The Fanatic, and I asked a very similar question, and here were the results. And this is where I'm a little bit baffled. Okay, so are you ready to commit all in to a Sixers NBA Finals run? Yes, 1,000%. 79% of people chose that. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Maybe. I mean, they can, but sure, they're in the mix, but I don't know. Obviously, they have an opportunity to, but I'm not going to tell you that they will. That type of message. 17% of people. And then 4% of people say, no, they're not good enough. So there's 21% of the people out there that analyze where the 76ers are, and they are not ready to go with the emotional pool. And I wonder, is that because it sets you up for a potential heartbreak? Are you afraid of failing and then your heart being ripped in half, where the cautiously optimistic approach is something that keeps you with a escape? Basically, you're giving yourself an escape by not convincing yourself it's going to happen. So if it doesn't, hey, just show me when you're there and then I'll believe. So you have an opportunity to back out of things. That's not where we're at. I am absolutely going full throttle because I've seen this league play out, and I've studied and I've analyzed a lot of squads that ended up holding that Larry O'Brien trophy. And a lot of those teams had flaws too. They were not the greatest in every single area, but where they were fantastic was their top-tier talent. And that's what the Sixers have. And they have a good combination of a third star in two players, in Tyrese Maxey and in Tobias Harris. And that 3A, 3B concept, I really believe, puts them in that third star category. Like, yeah, they have an issue rebounding the basketball. Keep in mind, James Harden averages 8 rebounds per game, and that's nothing to laugh at when you do struggle in that department. They might not have the most elite defense in the entire world, and maybe that ends up giving them some tough moments and some tough stretches throughout a playoff series. You want to talk about depth? I'll tell you that the starters are going to be playing 40 minutes. So those 8 minutes or so of getting creative and getting cute with the George Niang, a Danny Green, a backup big man. Yeah, Doc Rivers, I know, scares a lot of people with his rotations. But if your starters that are legitimate, and Embiid and Harden, 40 minutes of play, that's 40 minutes of play of the best talent out there. And you got to hold the fort down with the other 8. And sure, I'm not telling you that can't be a difference maker. It absolutely can. Now, Doc Rivers said publicly that it's going to be different when he has 4 guys that he can stagger through his lineups. He's going to have a Maxey, a Tobias, a Harden, a Joel. All right, Doc. Well, then show me. You can't just say that and not back that up and support it by doing what you're actually saying. Or else the media will probably throw a question your way. And then you better not counter with some sort of disgust and pissed off mindset like you've done in the past whenever there was a question that you maybe didn't like or you were being held accountable. Come on, Doc. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I'm ready. The moral of the story is I sit here today on February 21st, and I tell you that I am absolutely 1,000% ready to let this thing go. Absolutely. I'm ready to let this heart fly out there and go full throttle, 76ers mode. And normally I look at the cautiously optimistic, and I understand what is out there in the Eastern Conference, and I think that plays a role. It's not just how strong I feel about the Sixers, but it's also the surrounding pieces, and there's no one that I have so much fear in. That doesn't mean that there's not a team that could beat you. Can the Milwaukee Bucks beat you in a 7-game series? Absolutely, yes. Yes, they can. Sure, they can. But there's no LeBron James on the Cavaliers or the Miami Heat. And when you look at those Miami Heat teams, we did this exercise. I was telling you, I was listening to the radio. Mikey Miss laid it out perfectly. It was a good exercise of looking at the Miami Heat and looking at some of these other teams that went for a championship run, and you look at their bench. The reason why they won was not because of their bench. It's because for the 39 minutes of play that their starters were out there, they executed. They dominated. They put up 30. They grabbed 10 rebounds. Now, they don't have LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, but there's also not a team in this league this year that has that type of power. It is more wide open. I don't think you need that level of wow that the Miami Heat had during that run in this year when you analyze who the Celtics are, who the Heat are, who the Bucks are, who the Chicago Bulls are. So yes, of course, I will use context and the surrounding pieces to justify why I feel the way that I do. So I'm curious out there how everybody else is feeling. The phone lines are open if you are interested in calling or texting in at 856-442-9805. Of course, we have the chat room going as well. I can't thank you guys enough for kicking back and hanging out with me today. I have my cup of coffee, so if you're having your cup of coffee, I would love to hear from you and see where you feel when thinking about this basketball team right now and the run that's about to happen on Friday. And Friday can't come soon enough. It's disappointing that we got to wait all the way till Friday. I want a damn basketball game now. Instead, I got to watch the Flyers at 3 o'clock in the afternoon against the Carolina team that's probably going to annihilate them. And the Flyers have to play the St. Louis Blues tomorrow on a back-to-back. That's what I'm stuck watching instead of James Harden. I'll tell you what, the amount of I don't know how to explain it or what I'm even talking about, but that internal feeling when they announced James Harden as a Philadelphia 76er during the AllStar game yesterday, yeah, that put me in my feels for sure. All right, let's go to the phones. Let's bring in our first caller of the show. Good morning. You're on with Broach.
Hey, Broach. Good morning. This is Nolan from Hilltown, Pennsylvania. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, listen, two things. First of all, I was one of the callers on your Ask Me Anything podcast that you did a couple nights ago, and I just want to say thank you so much for taking my call. It was really great to talk to you that night, and obviously, of course, talking to you again this morning. So I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man.
And,
thank you.
Second thing,
yeah, for sure. Thank you for taking the time to call in.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Second thing too. Obviously, I can agree that all of us Sixers fans are very excited for the debut of James Harden this Friday night. And my question for you is, what do you think the mindset will be for Harden going into that night, knowing that this will be his first game playing for the Sixers in front of the Philadelphia faithful?
Yeah, and thank you so much for calling in. I think he's going to be stoked. Now, the first game is, I believe it's a away game, right? I think that game when Minnesota is in Minnesota. I'll double check. If he comes back, and I saw some reports today that will be the game that he's playing. If it's in Minnesota, regardless, though, for the first time in a 76ers uniform, I think he sees the way that Joel is playing, and he sees the way that he's so damn determined. And there's something special about when another individual who plays in the same tier as you is also raising the bar. And my point basically is, I don't know if I just explained that well enough, but there's called motivation in sports. And the fact that Joel playing this well is going to motivate James Harden even more is something special to think about. Yeah, the game on Friday is in Minnesota. On Sunday, they play in Madison Square Garden. And then Wednesday, March 2nd, is their first game that happens in the Wells Fargo Center. I'm super stoked to think about it, but I think James Harden just has this extra motivation because he sees what Joel has been through, and then he knows that the duo together could be scary. And it's actually ridiculous that I feel this way, but just to explain to you that this isn't a joke and I'm not just going a little extra too far. Everyone knows that I'm very big on hip hop and I love rap and I love music, right? Well, one of my favorite rappers is coming to town June 2nd. I am so in fear of buying tickets for this event just in case the 76ers are playing in a playoff game, an NBA Finals game at the same exact time on the same exact night. So I don't even know if I can go full throttle and buy these tickets because that's how strongly I feel that this is legit and this is real. Now, obviously, in this hypothetical world, it would have to be the same night, be the same time. But that's where I'm at mentally with this purchase. So just letting you know that I'm dead ass serious about this. This isn't no joke and just a little bit of some, haha, let's have fun and turn the microphone on and talk about the Sixers winning the NBA Finals. I have serious scheduling issues and serious scheduling plans already occurring in this brain of mine and on my Google spreadsheet so I can plan out my damn life. I don't know what to do for that June 2nd because I can easily see a scenario where there's a tip-off at the same time and there's 0% chance that I could go with any sort of DVR concept and not look at my phone and check out the game afterward. Get out of here. Get out of here. Oh, we got a $2 donation asking about what I thought about the halftime show from Chris Sheehan. I thought the halftime show was good. I mean, you see Allen Iverson, you see all the people involved getting their name called. It was a little long, don't get me wrong. I'll give you the good old get off my lawn concept, which is they probably shouldn't have started it at 8 o'clock and then have all the introductions. Then the game actually starts at what, 8:20 or so? No reason for the East Coast to be up until, I think it ended at 11. So it started at 8, ended at 11. I guess that's really not too bad, but it was a little long, but it was good in what it was. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was good for what it was. I actually enjoyed a lot of the NBA All-Star game yesterday. I thought that it was strong. I thought that it was solid for sure. Thanks, Chris, for the $2 donation. Considering the dunk contest was embarrassing, they need to change the dunk contest to something along the lines of maybe pig, where you have to do the same dunk as somebody else, but they have to simplify the dunks. The problem is we've seen so much, and obviously they want to do something that wows you to death, and they're so athletic now that they do something absurd, but it's not cool if it takes you 9 attempts to do something absurd. I'd rather see something more simple, but there's authority involved, and the rim shakes, and the backboard is somewhat moving around aggressively because there was so much hostility in the slam. What they're doing now is just brutal. And yeah, I get it. It hurts because a lot of these players are nobodies and they're not household names, but you're never going to get the LeBron Jameses of the world and the elite stars in the world in the dunk contest anymore. That's just not how reality is. And that's okay as long as there's something that gives us excitement and some sort of energy involved. I can't watch one guy run to the corner 15 times because the dude who's trying to bounce the ball off the side of the backboard isn't doing it well enough. Then they start pretending like there's a problem with the floor, but it really is your dunk just sucks and you can't execute it very well. And, you know, the dunk contest was absolutely horrendous. I enjoyed the three-point contest. I enjoyed the actual All-Star game in its own right. Now, maybe that's because Joel Embiid was making threes and pulling up in transition. He even had a position where it might have been Allen, if I remember correctly. I'm going, uh-oh. But he had him one-on-one, backing him down in the post. And Embiid does one of his one-handed throws across the entire court. to a wide open shooter on the far side. They ended up draining it for 3. And I'm going, that's so special. That's so beautiful. That's the Joel Embiid that we're accustomed to seeing. And that is just a magnificent, magnificent thing to watch for sure. It was a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed it a lot, to be honest with you. Maybe that's just because nothing else was on and it's a dead time. I mean, it got so brutal that I was having Phillies conversation on the radio yesterday, talking about the MLB, MLBPA. And when I'm saying it got brutal, it's more along the lines of, where are we right now? Football season's over. The NBA AllStar Break is in action. So really, you have negotiations between the MLB and the MLBPA, and maybe that puts applied pressure on them. Not that this is about baseball. I'm sure we can discuss baseball in a future show. But I'm just telling you, that's where this is now and that's where I feel during the game. Like, I had a lot of fun, but maybe I just had a lot of fun because there weren't many alternatives happening throughout. And now we have a dead week. So we have to, power through this, and I'm sure we will. But I want to continue this conversation on where we are at with the Sixers. And once again, I would love to hear from you if you would like to chime in at 856-442-9805. There is some phone lines open now for you to grab so we could talk about this and have our cups of coffee together. The flaws of this team, right? Rebounding, depth, defense, the coach, Matisse Thybulle being like your only legitimate perimeter defender that you can actually somewhat rely on that end, even though he does have some tough nights. He does bring it to you a lot, and he is an issue in the half-court set. But when you analyze this team, yeah, you can go through the list of issues that might hold you back. Well, I don't like Doc Rivers because of his rotation. Or I don't like the feeling of this team's rebounding. There's too many second chance opportunities, and sometimes teams are getting wide open looks from 3 after they already missed their shot, and it could be deflating. You're not wrong, but all I'm going to tell you is you don't see flaws in Miami because you just don't watch the Miami Heat for 82 games the same way that you watch the Philadelphia 76ers. They're not perfect. The Chicago Bulls are not perfect. For all these things that you want to analyze for the Sixers, rightfully so, that you could put in context and put in dialogue when thinking about how far this team can go. You can't just point out, well, this is why the Sixers are going to lose, but then not point out the fact that the Heat, the Bulls, the Bucks, the Celtics, they have their version of their own internal problems too, just like the Sixers do with rebounding. It's sort of like, well, Kevin Durant's going to come back from injury and be perfectly fine, but James Harden won't. Well, I mean, you can't just say that that's the case. There's going to be issues getting someone back on the floor no matter who you are. We're seeing this with Chris Paul. Injuries happen, by the way. This is how it works. Unfortunately for the Phoenix Suns, they might lose Chris Paul for a little bit of time here during this back run before the playoffs begin, but this is just how it works. It's not, oh, I can't believe you acquired James Harden. He's hurt, always hurt. This guy's hurt, that guy's hurt. Yeah, Kevin Durant's hurt. Anthony Davis is hurt. Chris Paul is now hurt. Maybe just the nature of sports more than it is anything else. You ever think of that? All right, well, I see some donations. We'll get to that in just 1 minute. Let's bring in our next caller who's on the Anytime Hotline. Good morning.
Morning, bro. This is Kyle from Connecticut.
Hey, Kyle, what's happening?
Not much. Just a couple of notes that I took away from All-Star Weekend. Number one, whose idea was it to basically play the newlyweds game with Steph Curry Saturday night?
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea.
Like, as bad as the dunk contest was, I was just sat there with my dad watching. We were like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I know. You know what? A lot of these, I'm torn in the middle. Here's why. And the NHL does the same thing, not to that level, but they try things that are so out there, and it's like I give them the nod for saying, hey, at least you're trying something different. But then the other side of me goes, why is it this? In what world was this what you decided to elect to do? Out of everything that you're trying new, this is what we end up dealing with? I don't know how that happens. Who made that decision?
Yeah, it was bizarre to me. But then the other thing, just looking at the buyout market, just because you were flirting with that a little bit earlier, not that like we're guaranteed to get anything, but if you had to choose, would you rather bring in someone with a little bit more size, say like strength and rebounding, or would you rather bring in someone with more of a guard presence? It's kind of a debate that I've been going with.
No, it's a great
it's
a great question, and it's interesting you bring that up because I had Rich Hoffman on as my guest Saturday, and I actually asked him a very similar question in terms of, okay, what do you do at the buyout market? Because he was discussing how Thibault is an issue, but then you think about the alternatives and what do you have. So I mentioned a Gary Harris as someone who can give you a respectful amount of minutes on the defensive side, but also has the ability to drain a shot, which right now it's like you have Thibault who can't drain a shot but brings you defense, and then you have Furkan who, I'll say he can hit a shot even though I despise him. He can hit a shot but can't defend a lick. So he made it clear, though, that what he's hearing around the Sixers is they're looking for a backup big man to Joel Embiid, but what he would do is look more towards a Gary Harris. And I agree with that. They probably need to go in that direction over the big man, but they're probably going to go with the big man.
No, I agree. It's definitely two interesting ways to look at it, but I think just overall, I think a more guard presence that brings you some defense, maybe not to the level of Thibault, but more so towards just being able to score would be a little bit more of a better help.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. That's a great call. More about just being an option offensively, being something. Really, Gary Harris will give you respectful defense and the ability to have respect on the offensive side. We're looking for respect. Right now, you got someone who's disrespected on the offensive side in Matisse Thybulle, and then Furkan Korkmaz, who's disrespected on the defensive side. You got to find someone who can hold their ground and hold their head above water for sure. See, if you think about Matisse Thybulle, if you're Joel Embiid, right, and you're getting the ball in the post, and you're defending Matisse, and you slide down to double Joel Embiid, and then Joel Embiid kicks it out to Matisse, guess what? They're not sliding or rotating over where the ball is now going to swing around the perimeter for a wide open shot. There's no swinging involved. The ball's not moving. They say, go ahead, shoot it, because we'll live with Thybulle shooting threes over Embiid in the low block or on the low block or facing up or anything like that. So there's no sliding or anything like that. They'll live with it, and it stings, and it will hurt you consistently. All right, let's get to some of these donations. We got a $5 donation coming in saying, do you believe that the NBA has magnets in their rims? No. I don't even know how to answer this, to be honest with you. I honestly can't thank you enough for donating $5, but no, they do not have magnets in their rims with the NBA basketballs. Karl Anthony Towns was just making his threes, and that's why he won the three-point contest. Thank you very much for the $5 donation. I would love to expand more on you, but that's such an outrageous question that I don't really know what to tell you other than no, I don't believe that there's magnets in the rims. We got $5 coming in from Joe. Does it concern you that James Harden was the last pick in the All-Star game? What do we do? What are these questions? Thank you guys so much for the $5 donation. Am I bothered that James Harden was picked last in the All-Star draft? No, he couldn't play. He wasn't able to play. You don't think that played a role in the selection, them knowing that he wasn't even going to be available and he had to sit out? No, Joe, I'm not worried at all. I am not worried where James Harden was selected in the All-Star game. That doesn't even cross my mind for a half a second. Now, weirdly enough, you're not the first person to ask me this, and that's kind of scary for me. And I don't want to be rude because I can't thank both of you enough for the $5 donation. Thank you. I love you guys for all the support, for hanging out in the chat and kicking it with me while I'm having my cup of coffee. Seriously, thank you guys. But a little bit on the whoa type of questions. Why would that bother anybody? Bros, I think Tobias Harris is going to step up big now that Harden is here. The pressure is off of him. I think he's going to be a good spot-up shooter. I agree completely. I think this is going to be a great position for Tobias Harris, and he's going to have the ability to just play a different role. And there were times last year where he was the secondary man and he was the Robin to Joel Embiid, to the point where we viewed him as an all-star snub, and he was a sensational player. He averaged over 20 points per game in the postseason at a 37% clip. Let's say you get that. Still, he averaged over 21 points per game at 37% clip. Now, it was about 18 shots per game in the playoffs last year. I anticipate that going down. I don't think he'll have that many shots, obviously. Embiid's going to get his, and then James Harden's going to get his, but Tobias is still going to get a good amount. My point is, if you're still getting the same efficiency, so less shots, but maybe that 37 to 40% clip from three, and that's Tobias Harris. So it won't be 21 points. Maybe it's more 17 because it's less shots, but the efficiency is still smooth and the efficiency is still respectful. And by the way, if the other team elects to play defense a certain way and puts Embiid in double teams or Harden in double teams, that's going to open up more time and space for Tobias to get more looks from better spots than he's ever had. Even when he was playing last year. Think about Ben Simmons 4-on-5 and the problems that occurred then. There's going to be even more spacing for Tobias to flourish. So I like him taking that role as the 3A, 3B concept. And that's the way I'm going to continue to analyze it, because that's what I feel is going down. You have a third star. You do. The third star, though, is just a combination of Tyrese Maxey and a combination of Tobias Harris. And I was asked a question yesterday, actually. Who is James Harden going to impact the most? When Michael Jordan was there were role players that stepped up and had strong games. And because Michael Jordan was Michael Jordan, other players had the opportunity to really thrive. And I believe that James Harden and Joel Embiid, the combination of both of them, but James Harden specifically being your number one primary ball handler and setting up everything and being the guy to generate the offense in the floor general, I think it's Tyrese Maxey. Because now there's less stress on being a not real primary point guard, and it's less of you got to run this offense to your ability, and it's more Tyrese be you. He gets to play off the ball a little bit. I think Tyrese Maxey, and I'm not talking just about learning. Like, hey, he gets to watch him and gets to study him and gets to work with him in practice. I'm talking on the court, in the game, flow of the action, 5-on-5, Tyrese Maxey off the ball at times. I think what those two guys are going to run, the two-man games, the pick and pops, and everything involved in the big man and the beard. Tyrese Maxey has a very unique situation here. And the speed of the game that he plays at is so fast and so electric that it's so different, that it puts the defenders on their heels because it's a different angle, it's a different force, and you're used to, okay, they're going to Embiid, they're putting in the post, they're doing this, they're doing that. Now you're giving it to Maxey, who's flying, who's moving, who's going 90 miles per hour and can outrun my Mazda 3. Seriously, Lee, the Mazda 3. I think Tyrese Maxey can burn it. So the change of pace is wild. And it's going to definitely make him flourish for sure. We got a $3 super sticker coming in from William Upchurch. Thank you very much, William. I can't thank you enough for the $3. Thank you guys so much. I'm just looking at the chat here and seeing what's going on through the chat. Eric says, that's the main thing that annoys me. Trading Curry, you would think that means you believe Isaiah Joe is ready. Yet he's buried him on the bench like Seth is still here. Isaiah Joe? Look, Eric, with all due respect, this team isn't going anywhere because of Isaiah Joe or no Isaiah Joe. Isaiah Joe should not be getting playoff minutes by any means. It should be along the lines of James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, or Danny Green, whichever one starts, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. Then your bench is Matisse or Danny Green, whoever the sixth man is whoever wasn't playing that role in the starter, George Niang, and then the backup big man. That's 8. You don't need 9. You don't need 10. You don't need that many players. If you play those many players, you stink. You stink if you're playing that many players. You're not good, and it's going to crush you. So, Eric, you're overanalyzing Isaiah Joe. You did improve from Seth Curry. James Harden is now taking over Seth Curry in the starting rotation. And James Harden is a better scorer. He's a better passer. He's a better rebounder. He's a better defender. He's a better leader. He's a superstar. He's better in every single area of the game, where you improved Seth Curry in every single area of the game. So let's just get that straight for sure. Now, complaining about Isaiah Joe playing or not, see, to me, you're just focusing on the wrong things. Isaiah Joe in a playoff run being a dude is a scary sight. I mean, to me, your team's not good enough if we're complaining about Isaiah Joe. That's bad. That's bad. Where are the minutes for Isaiah Joe? I just don't see how that's even available or possible to do. I just gave you my 8. That's my 8 I'm running with. That's my 8 that I'm going to utilize in the postseason, unless there's someone else that's brought in due to the buyout market. We got a text message here. I'm afraid of double agent Danny. The Doc's rotations, you can't play all bench anymore, and I hope the league investigates Ben for lying. That was a text message we got just now on the Anytime Hotline from Eric in Philly. You're afraid of double agent Danny? What does that mean? What does double agent Danny mean? You're afraid that what? He's not good? That he won't be good enough? Well, he's going to play, I'd imagine, what? I don't know, probably somewhere around that 15 to 20-minute mark, in that range. But if his job is to just stand there and shoot, and look, I mean, it hasn't been good this year. And for me to just imagine all of a sudden it's going to click and he's going to be fantastic and amazing at his job, I understand those circumstances, and what we've seen to this point hasn't been a pleasure and hasn't been fantastic. But maybe the stress is on so many other guys when you think of the other team's defense, where when you are on the other team, think about what they're processing during film and during review and analyzing what they need to stop. The highlight is on Embiid and Harden. So guys like Danny Green will get some open corner looks. And guys like Maxey and guys like Tobias, they're going to get golden opportunities within the game. Am I afraid of double agent Danny, whatever that means, a double agent Danny? I'm not telling you I feel the most confident in the world from him, but I do feel that he'll get even better looks than he has all season long based off of the addition of the beard. I do believe that. Doc's rotations is scary, yeah. But he's also said publicly that we have too much talent at this point to run some of the all-bench lineups that we've seen. Now, there should be a 0% chance, let me be very clear, a 0% chance of seeing Tobias plus all-bench, because to me, you're flirting way too far with the all-bench lineup without actually going all-bench. That's still not good enough. Harden and Embiid, one of those two should always be on the floor. So there should never be a sequence where one of them are off. It shouldn't be even a Maxey and a Tobias. And at one point, I said it could be any combination of those four. Really, the more time that you study it, why should it ever be? It should always be an Embiid or a Harden. Always, 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 always. Always. When the game slows down, coaching matters, and Doc is going to lose the series for you. Sorry. Well, I mean, you probably are the same person that said Mike Budenholzer was holding the Milwaukee Bucks back and they never win a championship with Mike Budenholzer because he's an awful coach. You're not wrong to say that Doc Rivers and Mike Budenholzer and these coaches during the backstretch of postseason runs have their fingerprints on games, no doubt. My point is, if your stars play the way that they should in their 40 minutes of action and they execute the way that they're capable of doing, you could overpower your flaws at the coaching position. If your players are out there for the 40 minutes of the 48, that's not to say that Doc can't screw it up with an all bench, but I don't anticipate seeing an all bench anymore. You can't be that dumb. You can't be that stupid. You can't be that ridiculous and not have them out there at the same time and have these players in the best position to succeed. So you're not wrong to say, yes, Doc can ruin things and ruin the flow and make a mistake, no doubt. But if your players for 40 minutes are executing at a high rate and Joel Embiid is playing at an MVP level, you could make up for the flaws of those 8 minutes by dominating and being the stud that you are. Now, I'm not telling you it's on Joel Embiid to do that, and I'm giving Doc Rivers a free pass, and I'm not holding him accountable. That's not what I'm saying at all. But just like, well, we lack in rebounds. Yeah, we might lack in rebounds, but Embiid's a monster, and Embiid's playing at an MVP rate. oh, well, we kind of lack in the depth area. Yeah, but it doesn't matter because if James Harden's giving you 35 and Embiid's giving you 32 and Maxi's flirting in 19 points and Tobias gives you 17, you could still win that game with a little bit of some offensive rebounds given up. Well, if Doc Rivers makes a bad decision for a 3-minute run, and sure, it could hurt your flow, but if Embiid is giving you 36 and Embiid is giving you 14 rebounds and he's giving you 6 assists, he could make up for the flaws of Doc Rivers. You could make up for the flaws of Mike Budenholzer. You could make up for a lot of the flaws on your team when you have superstars play in the way that superstars play. That doesn't mean that I won't blame Doc or I won't put criticism on Doc. Like, let's say Embiid and Harden have awful nights, and Doc Rivers also went to the bench at a time that disappointed us, and we didn't like a rotation. The reason why they lost wasn't because we didn't like that move by Doc Rivers for a 3-minute span. It was because your players didn't show up. So obviously context is going to matter, and it's a game-by-game basis, and it's hard to really analyze it from a broad sense because we don't fully know 1,000% what we're actually discussing right now. We don't know the tone of it because we're not in the moment. We're not in that area right now, but that's kind of how my thoughts would go as a whole. Suns and Warriors are a problem. Yeah, you're talking about getting to the NBA Finals. You don't have to see them until the NBA Finals. No one can stop Curry and Klay. That's not necessarily true. No one can stop Harden and Embiid either. I like that. To say no one can stop Klay, I like Klay Thompson. I think everybody likes Klay Thompson, but he's definitely coming back with a little bit of some hiccups along the way. Now, he's scoring 17 points per game right now, which is not terrible at all, but we're used to seeing him shoot at a 44% clip every single year of his career. 41%, 40%, 42%, 44%, 43%, 40%. Right now, he's shooting 37% from three, which is closer to the league average. It makes sense, and he's still scoring 17 points per game. It's not like he's playing bad and horrendous by any means, but this isn't the Klay Thompson that we are accustomed to seeing, just like I'm telling you. So the Golden State Warriors have their version of flaws, and this is something that you got to worry about once you get to the NBA Finals, what team you're going to see, and that's fine. There's talent on the West, but right now it's about getting to the NBA Finals. And I brought up this debate, and I'm curious from anyone out there, and I would love to hear your thoughts. You can chime in. There are open lines. 856-442-9805 is the phone number if you would like to call in and have some dialogue with me right now. It'll be fun. So, yep, phone lines are open. Would we get farther than we did if we weren't to make a move, if we still had Seth Curry and Andre Drummond, with Joel being as special as he was? Could we still get farther than the second round? Could we see ourselves in the Eastern Conference Finals and improve our playoff run and expand where we were even with a Ben Simmons with just the way Joel Embiid was playing? And honestly, yes. Yes, I do. I honestly feel that way, where Joel was on such a tear and still is on such a tear, may I add, that we are probably going farther than the second round just because of how unreal Joel was. So that's why I feel the way that I do, where I already saw them improving. I already saw them getting deeper in the postseason without the trade. And with that, now you add James Harden, I'm going to add another level. I'm going to add a deeper series. I'm going to take it to the next step. So I'm all in right now. Emotionally, I'm doing it. And if it ends up backfiring and ends up putting me in pain and I end up getting my heart broken, then so be it. But right now, this is what it takes. We've always watched it from a distance. We tune into the NBA Finals and we watch Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. We watch LeBron James. We watch all of these special athletes, Giannis last season. We watch these unbelievable talents from a distance every single year. It's time to recognize that weapon that we're always enamoring and we're always jealous of and we want in our city, we have that. It's time to understand that we have that. And I think it's hard to digest it when you're involved and your feet are in the ground and you're in the trenches fully. When you're 1,000% involved, you see it differently by the day-by-day type of situations compared to the, hey, you're just watching from afar and you're watching with binoculars and you're watching casually a different city, a different team, a different logo, a different player compared to the in the mud and your feet are seriously, when you dig your feet into the ground, when you're there, it's a different perspective. And sometimes I think you could lose sight of it. And not that nobody's aware of what Joel Embiid is, but I'm just telling you, when we are enamored and our jaw is dropping on the floor, when a LeBron James and a Steph Curry and a Kevin Durant and these teams were consistently battling for the NBA Finals, and it was so hard to register how talented these players are, we are now in the position where other teams and other cities are watching Embiid and watching the Sixers going, damn. It has reversed. It has flipped. Where others are watching from afar, enamored, with their jaw dropped, thinking about Embiid. And I know we haven't even seen the two play together yet. And there will be some hiccups and there will be some uncomfortable possessions and maybe some turnovers. But ultimately, I have too much. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to use the wrong word here, but I guess I'll restructure the sentence. I feel that great that these two talents will figure out how to play with one another. It doesn't mean it'll be perfect every time. Doesn't mean there'll be some uncomfortable possessions. Doesn't mean there might be some, hey, you got to get me the ball in the post there. All right, I thought I had a good step back, but fine, I'll dunk you the ball into the post. Doesn't mean that won't happen. Sure it will. But by the next 20 games are over, and you see how important everything James Harden brings helps this team, because it's not just about scoring. Do you understand how valuable 10 assists per game is? Do you know how hard that is? I want to put it in perspective. NBA assist leaders 2022, because it's not getting enough praise what James Harden does. James Harden is second in the NBA. There's only two people in the league that average over 10 assists. One is Chris Paul, who averages 10.7, and the other is James Harden, who averages 10.2. That is insane, okay? Then it's Murray from San Antonio, 9.3. Then it's Trae Young, 9.3. Then it's Luka Doncic, 9. Then you get into the one person that has 8. Then it's a bunch of 7s. LaMelo Ball, Jokic, Kyle Lowry. All right? 10 assists per game. There's this narrative that James Harden only plays a certain way, and all he's worried about is isolation ball and beating defender. That's not true. It's just not true. It's a fake narrative. It's false. It's so hard to average 10 assists per game. You don't just casually average double-digit assists if you weren't a good floor general and you weren't good at getting people the ball. Now, granted, Kyrie Irving isn't available for every game, which puts the ball in his hands in certain times a bit differently. But I was going to bring up the fact that you got to remember, in Brooklyn, you're playing with the KD who likes the ball. You're playing with the Kyrie who likes the ball. Now, like I just alluded to, you don't know if Kyrie is even playing on certain nights. But the fact that, imagine if it was like people are worried now. Well, there's only one ball to go around. How will Joel and James Harden work, and how will they get their shots, and how will they be good teammates for one another? Well, I mean, he just averaged 10 assists where there was another person even added to the mix, and a ball-dominant point guard in Kyrie. You have no pure ball-dominant player here in Philadelphia to have to worry about at all. So I don't know how you think of it differently when you see the 10 assists. It's unreal. It really is unreal. You wouldn't call James Harden a floor general. How is that possible, Drew? Drew comments in here and says, I wouldn't call him a floor general. He literally is a point guard. Now, he's not Chris Paul, but Chris Paul is the ultimate definition. When you look in the definition, the dictionary, it's a picture of Chris Paul. But that doesn't mean anyone who's not Chris Paul isn't a floor general. Okay, if you're averaging 10 assists per game, you are a floor general. You are dictating the flow of your offense and running offense. Luka Doncic, Jokic, these are guys that average a lot of assists. LaMelo Ball, and these guys are all labeled as floor generals. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that you were referencing Russell Westbrook. That is me. That is on me. I apologize. You were referencing another person who was commenting. That's why it was so outrageous. I had to somewhat take a deep breath here and go, what do you mean? What do you mean? Nick thinks that the Timberwolves game can't come any slower. I agree. This is going to be a slow week. It's going to be a dead week. You're basically just going to hear back and forths about baseball over and over and over again, but we'll have some fun with it for sure. I mean, we're going to have our live streams. We're going to be kicking it. We're going to be taking your phone calls live. We'll be hanging out in the chat. We got the Anytime Hotline text messages and voicemails as well. So over the next 4-5 days or so, we'll definitely have some time to kind of kick it, have some fun. Floor generals don't try and score 30 a game. Teddy, are you referencing James Harden now? I just don't think you understand basketball if you don't see what a floor general does. And if you don't think James Harden is a floor general, then I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is crazy. Right now, the chat, and if you're listening to the audio version, and by the way, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, you can listen to all shows in audio form. And whatever your service is, if you like Apple Music, if you like Spotify, if you can leave a 5-star rating and a review, that would mean the world to me. So thank you guys so much for that. I would greatly appreciate it. Then I'm sorry, if you don't think that. Okay, once again, Teddy, you're saying that James Harden is not Chris Paul or Steve Nash. You're saying that they are the best to ever do it. You're not wrong. They are elite floor generals. But that doesn't mean if you're not the best two to ever do it, you're not allowed to be a floor general. That's absolutely horrendous logic. That's flawed logic. What you're saying is James Harden isn't Steve Nash and James Harden isn't Chris Paul at the point guard position. Fine. You're allowed to say that. But so you're saying two people are floor generals in the history of the NBA and nobody else is allowed to be a floor general? What are we saying here? This might be the most outrageous chat ever. And there's a lot of times I say that every 3 months or so. I say, holy shit, this chat today is crazy. But somehow, some way, after those 3 months go by and it's a new wave of holy shit, it gets even worse than before. It's crazy to me. Here is your definition of a floor general. So now we got to go technical on the dopes out there. A floor general in basketball is the player on offense who is in charge of running the offense as the primary ball handler. In most cases, that is the point guard position. What does a floor general do? I feel like I'm teaching a 3rd grade class. That's how bad of a statement this is to say that he's not a floor general. Anyway, the point guard is usually the leader on the court. They coordinate plays and they tell other players what to do. They control the pace of the game. And most importantly, they handle the ball. That is what a floor general does. So for anybody out there who doesn't understand now, then shame on you. That's all. Teaching with bros. Maybe I can do chalk talk. Is that a thing for basketball, chalk talk? I know for hockey back in the day, we would do chalk talk. Here's another text message coming in the Anytime Hotline. Bros, I cannot wait until Friday. It's unfair we got to wait so long, but I'm hyped. I'm all in this season. You don't make the Harden move unless you're going all in. Well, obviously, they're all in general, from a general sense, from an organizational sense. But I'm more saying, are you willing to put your heart on the line and say, this team, as constructed, and even if they add one more buyout player, is going to the NBA Finals? Because obviously, for the next 2-3 years, the franchise is willing to commit to a Harden and an Embiid and going all in from that sense. But I'm talking more about you, the fan, you, the individual. Are you ready to say this? Yes. I'm not cautiously optimistic. And I'm not saying, well, it's possible. Well, maybe. I mean, technically they can. Yes, they are. They will be in the NBA Finals. Are you at that level of intensity? And I have been cautiously optimistic for quite a bit of time. But then I somewhat changed the narrative here. And I changed where I'm at because I realized that I think I was putting too much emphasis on the bench. And I was putting too much emphasis on some other areas Reality is you have the talent at the top of your roster that wins NBA championships. That's the type of play that you need when you look at the history of the game and what style of players win you titles. It's the way Joel Embiid is. And from there, you have a James Harden. And it starts with those two. Without that, you're not in the mix. You're not in the conversation. There's no dialogue happening whatsoever. Now that you do see it, and it's consistent, and it's night to night, and it's 40 points here. It's 40 and 14. There's 7 assists involved, 6 assists involved. He's growing in every area. He's adding step backs to the mix, too. And now you get a real point guard who can operate in a half-court set, unlike the other bum that was here, and he's actually willing to let it fly and shoot the ball, and other teams have to realize that this guy's a threat, too. That's why I feel the way that I do. It comes down to analyzing the top of 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 the talent. And when you have that in this league, you're in a position. You are in a position. By the way, I have to let you guys know about WinView. WinView is the nation's leading sports predictor, allowing you to compete in pregame or live contests against other people, not the house. What ends up happening is you answer questions about a game and you're playing against another person. Whoever does better within those questions and answers more correctly will end up winning the pot. It's super fun. So, for example, I will give you, obviously there's no basketball on, I'll give you a hockey example. Tonight, the Vancouver Canucks take on the Seattle Kraken. And some of the questions that are asked, will either team change their goaltender within the game? So will a goalie get yanked tonight? Will Seattle win more faceoffs than Vancouver? Will a goal be scored in every period of the game? Will Vancouver record 36 or more shots total within the full game? Will Miller record 2 or more points? Will McCann or Eberle score a goal? Who wins the game? So these are the type of questions that you ask. You put in money, and they have a deposit bonus right now that they're doubling. If you spend 50, you get 100. If you spend 100, you get 200. There's a link down below in the description, winview.tv/broads. Check it out. It's fantastic. There's free games to play too. So if you just want to get your feet wet and try it and play for free and play some of these games for free, and then you can understand exactly how it works in the flow of things, that's definitely a great choice and a great idea as well. Make sure you sign up utilizing the link down below. It will help out tremendously. winview.tv/broads. Harden is a better passer than Ben, Lord, because, and this is a chat coming in from the chat room here, Ben Simmons can't operate in the half-court set. James Harden's better passer because he can actually do it in the most important, crucial moments in a basketball game, which is fourth quarter of the playoffs. Ben Simmons was good in the open floor. When it's fast-paced, you grab a rebound, you move in transition, defense isn't set, and he could fly to the rim as fast as possible, leave his feet, and then kick out to someone who's running into the corners, or he'll pick up his dribble and kick it out to someone behind him who's trailing for 3, and that's when he would get a lot of his good passes. James Harden operates in the slow down game, which is way more beneficial to the team. Now we're getting Harden as a turnover machine. Here we go. People are just dumb. People are just dumb. So funny. Let's see here. Turnovers. He is... Jokic averages a very similar amount of turnovers. Trae Young averages a similar amount of turnovers. Luka Doncic averages a similar amount of turnovers. You're not wrong to say he turns the ball over a lot. That's a fair thing to say. Sure, he turns the ball over. But to act as if that now, you take your pros and your cons. He turns the ball over a lot. Okay. Now let's look at his pros. You want to do the math and see how that adds up? Where if you want to point out that he does that, okay, you're not wrong to say that he turns the ball over a lot, and that is something that happens. To act as if the pros and everything that he does at a magnificent rate and everything that he executes at a very, very, very good rate and how unbelievable he is in about 5 categories of the game doesn't outweigh the fact, as if maybe this is, they shouldn't do it because he turns the ball over, or he shouldn't do it because of it. Well, that's just foolish, and that's just silly, and that's just taking an unnecessary shot. So, sure, he turns the ball over a lot. He also has a high usage rate. So the fact that he has a high usage rate also plays a role. Will he have the same usage rate with the Joel Embiid in the post, which means maybe the turnovers will go down a bit because that is the case and they're establishing low post presence and it's a different style of play compared to what he did in a different city in Houston or in Brooklyn? Yeah, things could change. So to say that his usage rate is up and that relates to turnovers, okay. That doesn't mean that you don't have success with him on the floor and you take away from his positives because that there is a flaw. Every player has a flaw. Let's go back to this. Just like every team has flaws, okay? Every team has flaws. The Sixers aren't the only team that you could look at and go, well, the rebounding isn't as beautiful as you would like. And they lack some defense on the perimeter. And they might not be fantastic with their depth. Every team has that version. Now, let's talk about Tatum. Let's talk about Jaylen Brown. Let's talk about this player. Let's talk about Luka Doncic. Let's talk about Jokic. Let's talk about every player in the NBA. If you point out their pros and their cons, there will be cons on the list. In every single player, there will be cons on the list. So it's not outrageous to say that, sure, Harden has that. But what you're downplaying is the list of pros that come with that con and how it obviously outweighs one another. And that's where it is ridiculous. That's where it's ridiculous to me. All right, we gotta wash James Harden. Okay. All right. Jesus Christ. People's brains are out there and something. Wow. Where do we go from here, people? Where do we go from here? It's a crazy day. It's a crazy day. Someone's pointing out that KD has no flaws. I'm sure if I sit here and think about it, there's something that can come up on a flaws list. It might not be a very aggressive flaw, but maybe there is a flaw in there. That's for sure. All right, with that, I don't know what to tell you about today's chat. One of the worst performances we've ever seen. But I guess they all can't be beautiful. I can't thank you guys at all. Oh, hold on. We're getting a phone call here. So I can't not take on a phone call. So let's do that. If you're taking the opportunity to call in, let's chat. So we'll take a call here. Hello, you're on with Broads.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, James Harden's washed. What are his numbers this year? Like 26, 8, and 7 or something?
It's
like, still pretty good.
Yeah, 22, 10, and 8 to be exact is his numbers for being washed.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be washed.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, look, it's fair to say that he's not playing as great as he was 3 years ago, but there's a difference.
They changed the rules.
Sure. I mean, I don't think that's the reason.
You have to get used to it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's the actual reason why it's happening. I think that it's
also, sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
No, I mean, also, like, it's not like Brooklyn's been the best place to play this year. They've been racked with injuries. Steve Nash is their coach. Let's not forget that. And also, Kyrie has been playing half the game, so I don't really blame him for taking a foot off the gas either.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that's a great call. I'm right there with you, and I feel the exact same way that you do in terms of there's situations and there's fits, and some fits just aren't great. And with a big man, with a Joel Embiid, I think a two-man game between those two will look a lot different for James Harden compared to two other perimeter players in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. That's a total change in the stylistic play of everything that you're seeing. I mean, it's not the same offense. It's a completely different style. And I don't think the style with Kyrie and Kevin Durant played a good role in where James Harden was in that city. And now you get an opportunity to change the narrative and switch how you play and just have a different sense of urgency with it. And I think it's going to go a long way for sure. So we'll see. We'll absolutely see. I love this. Harden's a certified choker. Right. Because I love that. Losing in the playoffs for people to them makes it where they are horrendous players. Because losing in the playoffs isn't somehow a long-term positive. That's how I see it. I see it as losing in the playoffs is a long-term positive. It's okay to lose. Your favorite player, whoever that is, lost in the playoffs a lot. Michael Jordan lost in the playoffs a lot. LeBron James lost in the playoffs a lot. Losing in the playoffs does not mean you stink and you're horrendous and you're pathetic. There's value in losing in the play. It's that hard to win. Your chances to lose in the playoffs is significantly higher than winning in the playoffs. And by the way, when he did lose James Harden, you went up against one of the most iconic teams in Golden State Warriors that are one of the most historic teams to ever play in the postseason, where one of the best shooters in the history of the game, who just dropped 50 last night, and you saw how dynamic he was, took you down in the Western Conference. The Western Conference throughout those seasons were filled with one of the most it's like where guys who never won a championship because they had to go through Michael Jordan, and you look back at their career and go, damn, just never had a chance because someone sucked their soul consistently. You had that with Golden State during those Houston Rockets year, and that played a role. You can't just lose the context there. And number two, he's not a number one anymore. On this team, he's a number two. And to act as if changing your position and changing your list on the pecking order doesn't matter to what you're going to be doing on the floor is just foolish and naive at the same time as well. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. But congratulations on saying he's a choker when losing in the playoffs, higher percentage, and actually winning in the playoffs. That's the whole, you'll never win with Harden. I've seen that 5,000 times. You'll never win. Okay. Let's go look at the betting odds on that. Congratulations, Mr. Tough Guy. All right, with that being said, we're done. We're out of here. Ridiculous today. Ridiculous. We got to be better next time. Not to the trues out there. I'm not speaking to you. The ones that are here every day, the ones that I love, the ones that are great and bring great energy and logical conversation. I'm talking about the dopes. The dopes out there. The dopes out there. With that being said, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Sports Talk with Bros, and I will see you next time.